the reason we've been able to get this top 1% of people is because of the real essence we've been able to create around the community. The type of people we already have attract more people who then sort of come along the lines and sort of join the community. Background has been that I started my journey way early. So I started my journey on the other side of the spectrum as a small business owner myself, right? So when I was probably 15 or 16, right out of my school is when I started. I was of the opinion that, hey, I can't work with my father, and he used to run a traditional business, right? But I think like most children, they feel that they want to do something on their own. So that's how I started. Started off with a small drone tech company. 2 years down the line, and back then no one actually was doing drones, etc. Right? It was a very gray area. 2 years down the line, I ended up selling that company. That became my first exit when I was almost around 18 and a half, right? And I'd already served more than 300 clients by then. Of course, I think I realized my innate ability to sell had really helped me build out that business and eventually sell it through as well. Through the course of these years, I've been in the startup ecosystem for a while. Built 2 tech startups. One was called as Dhanda, which is how the name suggests, right? Built a real business out of it. I was like, I want to build a small app for SMEs where they can actually leverage it for their own business use case. And we ended up like, what was the better name which we could sort of think of than Dhanda, right? And in fact, no one knows this about me, but we use Dhanda as a very common word in our Indian lingo, right? But I actually have a trademark on that name. So whenever you're using this word Dhanda, when you go and look up to the trademark is on my name. So again, we started off with that app. We scaled it to about 25,000 odd users using our platform to create online stores. This was back in COVID. And then we sort of translated that into saying that, we'll also create a marketplace. And that's when we started off this platform called as Baazaar. And we sort of built this out as an entire hyper-local marketplace. So if you've heard of ONDC, we were one of the first ones to actually get onboarded on the ONDC platform and sort of structure down how ONDC should actually work, right? But fast track to that, I mean, eventually, of course, did exit that business as well. And I was like, hey, if I don't do something about it, I'll lose touch. And now that I've exited and I'm sitting aloof, what should I do, right? And that's when I was like, okay, through the last 5-7 years of me being in the ecosystem, I've known a bunch of people. Some of them are really good ones, and I don't want to lose touch with them because I know somewhere or the other, somewhere in the future, these will be the people who will actually help me in my life in some form or fashion. I don't know where and how and what, but I know that these people I don't want to lose touch about, right? So I created a small WhatsApp group. WhatsApp had just launched a community feature. I created this small WhatsApp group with about 100 odd people, which I sort of put in initially, founders and investors, is where we started the Indian startup community. Cut down to 10 months later, we are close to 3,000 people. It's a fully gated community. It runs on a platform. We have 10 volunteers. We have done 20 events now. If you want to calculate the total AUM in terms of founders and investors, we have founders who have raised more than $10 billion plus. And we have investors who have an AUM of more than $25 to $30 billion, about 500-700 investors. And the rest of them happen to be founders from pre-seed to almost unicorn scale, right? So I think sort of happened and why this sort of happened, right? What I see is that, everyone sort of mentioned that, there were a couple of these points, right? From sharing referrals to, probably finding a mentor for networking, See, all of these things are very old school way of building out a community. This is a very SME way of building a community. And because we've been told and we have seen that communities have always been leveraged to cross-sell something, right? So either a large company will build something out, or either there will be these networking platforms which will sort of exist and which will tell you that, hey, you know what, you'll generate sales out of it. The reason I feel, why do we need a community? The first premise of why you need a community is that because you're human. It's human psychology to be social. It's human psychology that you need to know people who are in the same context, in the same group, are of same or similar knowledge, right? I think that's the very first premise of you either wanting to be in a community or build one. The reason is that it's so human, right? Say, for example, let's backtrack to very social life of yours where you would say that, oh, I want to host my friends to come over for dinner, right? Or you are having like a Diwali party, you're sort of wanting people to come over there, right? So the point is that human psychology is something which is always revolved around building a community, right? And that's something which we really undermine, that how this can actually be used for then eventually converting, transacting, and sort of making some sales, right? Traditionally, when you look at this, like the outlook of building out communities have always been that. So what I feel is that this is the first human premise of sort of building out communities. Everything else which you all mentioned is right, but it's all a derivative coming out of you building out a great community. Now, as I was mentioning, when you sort of like look at it on a macro level, अगर आप बाहर से देखो, the real business actually happens between friends, right? Now the friends say that, hey, you know what, just because you are doing it, I'll go ahead and. Now, how do you cultivate this friendship with a lot of other people? And how do you leverage that and convert that into sales, right? Again, why do we need it? I think I mentioned it's based on some human psychology of just being more connected to people you would sort of, ideally want to know, right? And how do you start it, right? Where do you start? Cool. I see a lot of points, all relevant, because you've been taught this way, right? कि community बनाना है तो यार एक WhatsApp group बना लो, and यार एक email newsletter चालू कर लो. The fact that most people think that is what community is about, right? So before starting a community, I want to actually make people understand what does a community actually mean. Yeah, we've been using and listening to this word round and about, and a lot of small to large companies, everyone will tell you that we want to build a community. But what actually is a community is what we want to understand before starting it, right? And it is not a WhatsApp newsletter, or it's not a WhatsApp group, it's not an email newsletter, it's not a small workshop which you do, but it's actually a group of people who believe and trust in each other, who over a period of time will get very, very involved in terms of doing all activities, right? So today, for us, when we do anything at TISC, people reach out to us that, hey, tell us where can we help, or what can we do, or can we invite more people? We have organically built the entire community because people in the community itself go ahead and say to 10 other people that, hey, you should join. And we actually have something called as referred by. So when we look at an application form, we see that 90% of people are actually the ones who've been referred by people who are already in the community, right? The fact that it's such a tight-knit human thing for people to do to be a part of the community. Now, the reason, how do you start something like this, right? I think, again, that's how I also started it. That's what I also thought, that yeah, just a WhatsApp group bana deta hu. For me, that is my community. But it was never the case, right? I started it. I started with a small WhatsApp group. And then I was like, oh, so many people are coming in, but where is the quality of conversation going, right? So for me, I wanted to gate that. So starting a community is about knowing who can actually be a part of the community. Now, community is meant to be gated. The reason is that you don't want anyone and everyone to be a part of it. You want your target audience to sort of come in. So the first thing you want to do is identification of your target audience. That's like point number one. यार कौन आने वाला है community में? Who do we want to build for? For me, it was very clear. I will build for the top 1% of people in the country, the top 1% of startups and founders and investors who will become a part of this, right? That was like very, very, very clear to us, right? This is what the premise needs to be set. Now, for example, if you're running a sales team, or if you would get benefited out of getting CXOs or operators or CMOs, or could be anyone you could benefit out of, right? The first thing which you want to do is to sort of narrow down in terms of knowing who will come into the community. Once you know who comes in, like that's the first premise, the first point. The second point which you want to sort of look at is, how do I get that and how do I get them in the community, right? So for us, what we started was, we started using this small tool called as nas.io. Nas Daily, if you've heard of this name. He happens to be a pretty big YouTuber, right? Now he happens to be a friend now and a part of the community. But when we started, he was just running this platform. I got in touch with him somehow, right? And I was like, hey, this platform looks cool. Can we use that? Right? And when we started using it, right, we gated this entire thing that today, if let's say you want to go ahead and apply to the Indian startup community, and what I'll do is I'll also put this in chat, search, this is the URL, tis.community. When you go and when you sort of sign up, the fact is that you will see this as an entirely gated process, right? Even to join a WhatsApp group, we actually took the effort to use a tool, create an application, people fill in that data, we approve that data, and only then they can sort of join in the community, right? So this curation is something which we really sort of went very deep down into, and that is really compounded into the quality of conversation which happens in the community. No one really sort of like, unlike most WhatsApp groups, people don't send CVs here, or don't send random events here, or don't send requests here without any reason, right? It is because what happens is that once the quality of conversation deteriorates, the best people who don't have enough and so time to sort of spend, right, will sort of move out of your community, right? And this is what happens. For us, because we wanted the quality of conversation to be amazing, we ensured that, you know, the like everyone sort of gated well. So that is the first thing which I sort of want to put across to how to start a community. Now, I think we mentioned about finding the target audience, choosing the platform, right? So that's the second piece. The third piece is that once, of course, you start, right? Let's say you get this through, and how do people come in, right? How do people know that you have started a community? Now, this is one big problem with people, that they think that their community would be very company centric. And most people say that, hey, if I'm say from say an X company who wants to find fintech professionals to sort of come in, right, I'll go ahead and create a community for them. The problem is that we don't look at the value which we are providing to them, right? So the third point is value. You have your target audience, you have a platform, but why will they come in, right? Because you're giving out some value. For me, my core value proposition was simple: ensure that the top 1% get to network between each other and they have an access which is unlocked, right? So I knew some really good founders, people who have built unicorn companies, right? Do anyone and everyone, and people who are wanting to thrive to build there. Of course, they've built something, but they are thriving to get better. Do they have access to these people? No. Do founders have access to the right kind of investors? No. Can I connect? Yes, right? So the fact is that we also need to answer this question of what is the actual value we can drive for everyone. That's the third layer. The fourth layer is that how can we make it very silent transactional, right? So the fact is that we don't want to put down a transaction on the face of it, right? So that's why most people say that, oh, I'll make a community which is paid, right? The first thing is that people don't join paid communities because you don't join or you don't pay to meet a friend, right? So the first thing which I really assume that a lot of people should not do is to have like a paid community, because what it does, it just hinders the right kind and quality of people to not come in. Even they might have money, but they don't come in there, right? Because they need to some proof, some establishment of what you've been able to do. We talked about that, you know, how do we sort of course, go ahead and build down and start a community. And then once you sort of course, find down your target audience, and then you say that you find out your platform, you find out the value. Say, for example, I'll give you an analogy, right? A large company came to me very recently, right? And they are in the entire retention space. They say that, okay, we'll ensure that every company uses our platform to retain their user. And they wanted to start across a community. And I helped them sort of build that entire piece through. The way I sort of course, did that was saying that, hey, do not attach your company name to the community, because the time you do that is where you are saying that, oh, the people know that you're going to upsell something to them, right? So how can we actually create a cohort which is independent of your community, but then eventually you can of course cross-sell because you own the community, right? So they started off with it, right? And then the point came in where they're like, okay, now we have the TG. So we understand what is the value which we sort of want to bring in, but now how do we scale it, right? How do we ensure that people come in and join this community? And of course, in joining in numbers, right? Because community is a demand and supply game. We need to have enough and so people joining in the community so that it can actually make sense, right? It can actually be transactional. People can actually discover other people. How do we actually scale is simply from the virtue of, and if you remember, right, the first thing which I mentioned when I started this entire, I think, masterclass was that, hey, put on your videos and come in front, right? The point is that the simple real theory, right, of what it is, right? कि यार जो दिखता है वही बिकता है, वो तो है ही, right? But the fact of also saying that जो ज़्यादा दिखता है वो भी ज़्यादा बिकता है. So we need to also ensure that we are really out there, right? A lot of people want to sort of understand from you or sort of are looking at you on a day-to-day basis. So everyone who actually joins in the community tells me that, hey, I've seen your LinkedIn, right? And I've seen, all the work we've been doing, right? And people get to know about, unless until someone who would want to be or could be a potential TG does not understand what do you actually do and does not feel that FOMO, why would they join it, right? Why would they take that effort for spending 5 minutes to fill in that application form, come and join that WhatsApp group, right? Imagine all of this today for us happens at zero CAC, no cost associated whatsoever for anyone to join it. More than 3,000 people have filled in that application form. More than 10,000 people have applied, right? And this has happened without us putting in any effort or not even telling anyone कि आप आके form fill कर लो. It's happened organically. You just being out there. You just ensuring that people get to know that you exist. How do we do that, right? And I'll tell you very simply. We of course put down more LinkedIn posts, right? And then we say that we'll collate down some email IDs of people who we think could be a part of the community. We put them in the newsletter automatically, right? Once we put them, they are getting in prompts of the events which we have done. So through the 20 odd events which we have already done, a lot of these people get across कि, oh, they have done this. Here's a picture of 200 people which they hosted. They hosted 150 people last time. They hosted 50 people here. And then we moved it across city, right? So we were not the ones who said that, okay, we'll just stay in Bombay because I'm in Bombay. Through the last couple of months or so, and this month, we've done events in Delhi, in Bangalore. Next, we're doing in Calcutta, in Goa, and stuff like that, right? So we've also ensured that we put that added effort that within even a 30-day period, we are in 5 cities and we are out there, and all the information of what we have done reaches to people who are already there in the community, yes, but also the people who are going to be out there, right? Who potentially want to join in the community, who I feel I would want personally, right? How to sell, right? Like the most inert question which we've been all waiting for. Yeah, itna mehnat kar liya, itna community bana liya, we've put down months of effort to build a community, right? And everyone today comes and asks me, yeah, Tanishq, how do you monetize, right? Matlab, how do you monetize your community? And what is the core of your community? आप community में यार event में आने का पैसा नहीं ले रहे हो. आप sponsorship से क्या निकाल लेते हो? What happens, right? You invest all of that back into sort of doing your events, right? How do you make money? Now that is the beauty about community. The beauty about community is that the network derivative in terms of business opportunity which you'll be able to generate for yourself is much larger, is much delta compared to the core of the community. So for example, yes, I do not put down a community membership fee. Tomorrow, if I do say $1,000, $500 a month per person to 3,000 people, 4,000, 5,000 people, maybe I can sort of make money out of that and people will pay it because they find value. But it's very small compared to what we actually are able to generate. And I'll tell you what, right? Second, we do have a couple of these paid events, but say I put down a small gated fee for every event. The type and the quality of people I want to sort of host, I mean, they wouldn't come, right? They feel that, oh, why would I pay to sort of come in? And this is a big classic problem with a lot of people that they do not attend paid events because, I mean, they've been given this leverage for free for a long time. Why would they come? And I'm talking about really high quality people, the likes of a unicorn founder as well. How do we leverage it to sell? Is that the first thing which we do is we don't,
right? The first thing for us building this community was, yaar, isko non-transactional banao. Let us connect with people on a more human level, right? Let people know about us, about me, who Tanishq is, what he's been doing. Just validate you as a person, right? And I ensured that I did that for a good 6, 7, 8 months to sort of trickle down into creating this entire community piece, right? Once that started happening, the network derivative in terms of, right, people coming to me, hey, we want to go ahead and build this. Can you help us, right? Because we've seen you sort of build this XYZ out. Or, hey, you know what? I know you sell or you help D2C brands do offline retail, and we've seen that. Can you also help us, right? Just because I was more out there, they found me and they gave me a contract, right? Or, hey, I'm a new startup. I want to make a pitch deck. And can you help me do that, right? And I was like, okay, I'll help you do that. The fact that, you know, the community actually comes to you and asks you, oh, I have this problem, can you solve me this? A beautiful feeling, right? Because, I mean, you might try to sell 10 different things to 10 different people, but unless and until they have their own need in terms of finding a problem and then getting a solution for it, right, they wouldn't convert, right? So for me, it has been such a natural conversion that, hey, you know what, I can help, and let's just come and chat and then let's just convert, right? So I have had probably a 90% conversion rate in terms of whosoever comes to me with a problem. And if I have that ability to solve, right, I have had this opportunity to convert them into some sort of sale, some leverage, because I mean, that comfort has been set over months, right? And there are two concepts which I want everyone to know. And the concept is of width and of depth, right? And what do I mean by that? Width is how many people you know, right? How are you going ahead and expanding your network? Everyone tells you go ahead and expand your network, right? But how? What? Kya kar rahe ho aap uske liye, right? So finding width is something which you naturally have to do. How do you find width? Go out, meet more people. Early on when I started, and the reason I've been able to get such good people in, I used to do a very random LinkedIn DM to someone that, hey, you know what, I randomly must have written to like a founder of a man company while I was in Delhi that, hey, you know what, I am in your city, can I meet you, right? I would love to meet you. Nothing, no transactional, nothing doing. I just want to meet you, right? And you would just be surprised with the fact that how open a lot of people are to just go ahead and meet someone, right? Because even they know they want to expand their network. Now, I did this for probably 2-3 years before even starting off the community to just get to know a lot of people. So I used to just directly just DM them, message them that, hey, I would really love to meet, etc., etc. I'd go ahead and meet them, establish that comfort first, right? And compounded effect of that has been the community we've been able to build and the trust we've been able to generate, right? So that is the width piece, that you need to build down the width. But with the width, you also need to build down depth, right? That's the second part of it. Now, depth means how deep of a relationship do you have with someone, right? How deep do you actually go with someone in terms of just telling them that, hey, you know, how deep of a friendship it is. So, for example, I'll tell you how do I find depth in this entire width also, which I've been able to generate, right? So yeah, of course, I know 3,000 people today, right? But that's my width. But the depth which I have would be with a bunch and a handful of people who I know at any given point of time are useful enough for me to leverage so that I can reach anyone else I want, right? Now, I do not want to name people who I know, but the fact that the ones who are doing really great things across different verticals, and the reason I've been able to build depth with them is also because I was just not selling something to them, but I was also ensuring that we on a conversational level deliver value to each other. So a lot of good people who might be sort of managing, let's say, billions of dollars or running large funded startups, the fact that I've been able to help them with, hey, you know what, I used to go to them and I was like, hey, you know what, this is a person you should connect to. And without any transaction, no nothing, I would just help them, right? Without anything. And when I started with that, I always had an upper hand because I had helped them with something. I could sort of use and translate that into then building. And then I would just say, hey, near your office. And I used to remember, right? Oh, someone's office is here. I used to just randomly call them up and like, hey, you know what? I'm closer to your office. Do you want to catch up for coffee? And they would only invite me over, right? And then we would have half or 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour worth of conversation. Similarly, when we I'll tell you some things we should have done post our events as well, right? We used to host large events. For example, we hosted an event for 200 people in Delhi. Post that, we hosted a small after party with 20 people who we wanted to build a dev with. And that was more informal, right? That was like just friends catching up over drinks, over just sitting and chatting and stuff like that, right? Now that itself is a very added delta that great people who generally you wouldn't even get a meeting with, you are now going ahead and grabbing drinks with them, right? And that's where the real depth sort of gets built, because that comfort is now as a friend. Now, when you tell them, hey, I want to do this, or can you help me with this? It becomes very, very easy compared to what it was, right? So building the breadth, and the depth, the width and the depth, I think both of these things are supremely important to then leverage a community to sell. This is not a short game, right? So if we think that, this is going to happen I meet someone at a networking event and I tell them that I buy my product and you think that they are friends, no. So I think we need to find the difference between someone being an acquaintance and someone being a friend, right? We very casually say that, hey, I know someone, he's a friend, but most times people are acquaintance and we need to put an added effort to ensure that they become friends. So there's this rule, and this I want everyone to listen carefully, right? It's called the 40-hour rule. For you to call anyone your friend, right, you need to have had spent at least 40 hours worth of virtual or physical time with them. And that could be in a one-on-one or a group setup, but that really needs to be established before saying that someone's a friend and not just an acquaintance. So that's something which I really want people to know about, this 40-hour barrier, which you want to break with people. And if you are able to break this 40-hour barrier with people, you would have ideally ensured that you've built this depth, right? So this core, like star mark this, that anyone I want to build depth with, I'll go ahead and I'll ensure I've spent 40 hours with them in some form or fashion, right? In some way or the other, through some time. And once, let's say, if you don't have a benchmark in terms of when can I ask someone, as soon as you cross this 40-hour barrier, try asking someone for something you'd want to sort of do and see the difference, right? That is one core point. Ma'am, I think a very classic problem, and I understand where you're sort of coming from, right? Let's call it the Google problem, right? Like Google is too big to ask for anyone to go ahead and sort of say that, hey, you know what, why do you not run ads on my platform? The fact is that Google doesn't have to, because then Google can ensure that it has more people, more advocates who then go ahead and cross-sell, right? What you can start off with sort of doing is sort of break this barrier, right? Like I think people need to understand you. So what you can do is say, get 5-7 people you might know and who you might eventually want some transaction out of, and just because you've been in the profession for a long time, etc., just call them over for, hey, I'm hosting a small dinner, right? Just come by. Without anything, right? You don't want to sell anything, nothing. Hey, I'm hosting a small dinner for 5-7 people. We'll just talk, right? And I'm sure that something or the other will sort of come out of it, right? Do this with a bunch of people for some time, for 6 months, right? Don't ask for sales, nothing, right? Try doing this. And then eventually, once you want to sort of get this, right? And people will start trusting you more, because that barrier will go away. In that 6 months, people will become more So I think what you should start off with is just by saying that get more people in, right? Just start hosting this for some time. And once you find someone who could sort of use you or sort of go ahead and cross sell, right? Tell them that, hey, you have an opportunity for someone to make money. go ahead and just use my products and go ahead and sell that. Maybe you can't do it. Maybe someone else who's sort of coming in, or maybe someone's sister or someone's daughter or whosoever, right, might want to give it 6 months of time, create a good network, right? And I'm telling you, the best way for you, at least at your your situation, should be just to get more people and just start hosting small dinners. Like ghar pe, just call them over at your house, host a small dinner. Because you know that how, like, more people need to know कि यार देखो आपने जैसे बताया, right? I'll put it very clearly. Here you're in HDFC, you're wanting to sell loans. You make a delta by ensuring कि यार आप मतलब आपने अगर एक loan process करवा दिया, you get your bonus, right? And you want to, that's why the reason you want to sell more is because you are in this entire mindset कि यार जितना मैंने process कर दिया उतना मेरा bonus बनता है. As simple as that, right? ठीक है. अब मैं आपको बताता हूँ कि वो कैसे होगा. लाइक यार अगर आपने जैसे बोला दैट टेंस ऑफ पीपल एग्जिस्ट, टेंस ऑफ इंस्टीट्यूट्स एग्जिस्ट, मैं जाके विजय से लोन क्यों, राइट? व्हाट मेक्स विजय डिफरेंट टू गो अहेड एंड टेक अ लोन फ्रॉम हिम, राइट? व्हाट वी नीड टू एस्टैब्लिश विजय इज also saying that what value would you be able to provide to someone else, saying कि यार आप मेरे से लोन लो तो उसका बेनिफिट क्या हो. See, the value benefit is ठीक है यार, I can get you the best rate. Everyone will tell them this कि भाई रेट आपको अच्छा करवा दूंगा, process जो है. But that entire experience of how a customer feels through transacting with you, और ये ना NPS वाला game, right? It's called Net Promoter Score. People need to promote you, Vijay, as a person who will get everything done. So something as simple as, right, and I've seen this not happen, right? Most people who put down loans don't even, or sell loans, don't even have a smile on their face. The one thing which you can change is start by changing yourself and your behavior in terms of how you're pitching to someone. You're saying, sir, loan नहीं लेना ना, कोई बात नहीं, कॉफी के लिए मिलते हैं, बात करते हैं, right? मत लो loan. Don't take a loan, right? Don't sell it to them. Tell them that, hey, you know what? I work with HDFC. You seem like someone. So can I just come to your office, or can I come to your place and can we just talk, right? I have this, right? और मेरे को नहीं चाहिए आप अभी कुछ लो. I just wanted to make this connection, and I thought कि whenever you have something, right? Does someone take this added effort? अगर मैंने आपको बोला ना कि यार I don't want a loan, then done. आप फोन रख देते हो, मैं फोन रख देता हूँ, खत्म, right? It doesn't happen. Like ठीक है, even if you don't want to take a loan, so I work with HDFC. I would love to build a relationship with you. Let me just come over for coffee. If you don't mind, I'll take 10-15 minutes of your time. I don't want to sell anything, बस हम बात कर लेते, right? And I would love to understand about your business, so that मैं मेरे एक सर्कल में मैं मार्क करके रखूंगा. आपको कभी भी रिक्वायरमेंट हुई, then I can help you. कोई जरूरत नहीं है, कोई जबरदस्ती नहीं, right? Try with that. Create a network of your own, and then people should know okay, by Vijay, say for example, tomorrow you're not in HDFC, you're in ICICI, right? You have your customers with you, irrespective of who's behind, right? So आपको अपने आप को indispensable बना देना है. You don't need to say that because HDFC है तो मेरे से. Then people are considering HDFC and then Vijay. Let people consider Vijay and then think, अच्छा आप HDFC दिला दो, ICICI दिला दो, किससे दिला दो, उससे फर्क नहीं पड़ता. बस विजय दिलवा रहा है ना, right? I think that's what you could do. Do you do anything offline? Do you do any offline events? Start doing more of that. In what you're doing, high touch, right, is something which is really needed, because this is a real problem, right? A lot of people don't understand, but like base level parenting is like one thing which is like a very real issue, and I think great that you're sort of solving for that, right? It'll only be understood when people you've already trained, etc., parents, and other parents. Now, parents, why would two parents come to one place? Is because then you are saying that, hey, you know what, there is something for kids and parents, and we're keeping like a free session, right? You start off with saying that it's like free, it's very basic, right? And do that. Do more of those, right? Do more of saying that, oh, we'll get more parents to come together. The reason is that that's when they'll also understand, right? Because two parents will relate to the problems of each other. They can talk about products, they can talk about problems, etc., etc. And because that has started happening, then you can always go ahead and cross sell. So I think that move that thing from rare to more frequent, right? Like do more frequent interactions between your target audience, because then that's when the community will start growing. Because then they'll tell 5 other parents that, hey, you know what? No one tells today to join a WhatsApp group, but they'll say that, hey, we have a small meetup happening for parents to sort of come along. Why don't you sort of do that? And this is a great way. I'm sure a lot of parents want to sort of, and because the children are telling them, right, okay, my small, like my friend is going to be here as well, and then they take their parents along, right? And you can also keep events like that. So you can plan something around that, but I think you can try to make this more frequent, and it should help. So I feel that because we are not providing enough value, because see, as it's very human to say that I think the experience would have been 10x than what it is right now online. By if you would have just done the masterclass offline as well, right? I'm not saying that this doesn't work; it works. But the fact that if we are able to do more of, because it's a mix of both, right? I mean, it can't work both ways. Say, for example, tomorrow, once we've given this like as a starter point, right, with a lot of people, then you want to say that, hey, I want to do an offline event, more people will come in there. So do a mix of both of these things. And for the offline, find like what will work, right? And I'm not sure that I can answer that right now, ki what will work. But what you should actually think of, ki, would there be something which would work for bringing more parents and children together in one room? Because if you're able to do that, that's your target audience right there, right? And then you just have to talk to them directly, one-on-one, and just tell them that, hey, you know what, this is what we can help you in. And they'll start trusting you more, because counseling is a thing for parenting especially, right? People don't want to accept it, right? That they need to do this. So then there's also a problem of you sort of also solving for education for those parents. And they'll also realize, oh, other people are quite open about this. Maybe I'll also go ahead and try it out, right? So try just thinking of something which might work. Yeah, so in a tier 2, 3, and this is an idea which I have also been thinking, right? A lot of tier 2, 3 is in the aspirational class, right? So they're not the ones who sort of gotten there. That's how you mentioned, right? The 500 rupee bracket, and the price which you sort of trying to sort of hit for them is absolutely right. For them, community has, and they've been like tier 2, 3 actually are more involved in doing something in community, but they don't know it's called community, right? They'll have a small group. They'll always have one, group bully leader, and then there'll be 10 others who will be a part of it, right? This is a small one. And whatever this one cool person does, the 10 others will follow, right? That's how it is. It's been cyclically. Aspirational class works like this, that one guy in the aspirational class gets it, and then so what you want to deliver is not saying that something is cheap, but something is value, right? This is for value. That's one establishment which you want to do as a brand. Now, once you're able to do that, say, I'm assuming that you're able to sort of put down as not cheap, but value. And then take the community and to tell them that, ठीक है यार, ये 150-100 लोग हैं ना, इनको बोलते हैं कि like how can you get your other group of 7-10 other people to sort of take this, right? You say that, hey, you know what, for every 10 bottles which you take as a small customer, right, I will ensure that you get 1 bottle for free, right? So then if someone uses your code. So this classic referral thing is something which you can make it work very beautifully. So you can start by building the referral program first, and then eventually say that once you have enough of a customer base, then you can start doing more things for them. Let's say if like a market like an Indore or a Rajkot is where, people are going ahead and buying something, right? You can then go ahead and say, I don't know, do a small event or a concert or so some jam of some sort for 40, 50, 100 people who become your customers there, and host that. And you can make that ticketed also so that it's free, but then your branding is also sort of coming out. So that could be wild ideas, right? But maybe the first thing you can start doing is just crack a referral, so that these people can tell more people, because tier 2s are very small knit groups. So maybe you can do that. You're able to use Zoom, I'm sure you will be able to use Instagram as well. I feel बहुत धीरे-धीरे करके, sir, start making some reels, right? Start making reels about ये मनी मास्टरी का जो सर आप लोगों को सिखाते हो, उसके आप छोटी 30 सेकंड्स की आप रील बनाना चालू कीजिए सर. स्टार्टिंग में शायद कोई ना देखे, आप उसको that shouldn't be a deterrent to stop you. अगले 6 महीने 1 साल सर आप सिर्फ ये छोटी छोटी मनी मास्टरी पे छोटी रील्स बनाते जाइए, राइट? आई फील दैट someday, because of how you are as a person, sir, I feel कि people might click कि oh, someone at this age is also building out something and your following will increase. जब आपकी वो following increase हो जाती है सर, over a period of time, you will be able to use that following to cross sell anything to them. I feel कि अगर आप ये मनी मास्टरी करते हो तो आपको कंटेंट बनाना चाहिए. इसको ऑफ कोर्स आपको सीखना पड़ेगा, सो टाइम जाएगा, बट अगर आई एम श्योर इट विल गिव यू सम वैल्यू. I think that a lot of people like want to start like a restaurant or even a small business, right? Like just to start like a pop-up. भी कितने ही लोग होते हैं जिनको चालू करना होता है, right? They don't have enough content on it. अगर आपको लगता है कि अगर आप किसी को कोच कर सकते हो, and especially I think in Hindi as a language, क्योंकि tier 1 में कुछ अलग ही चल रहा है, right? But जो tier 2, 3, 4 में अगर किसी को कोई चीज establish करनी है, और अगर आप आपकी फॉलोइंग उसमें बना दो कि यू आर एबल टू एक्चुअली टॉक अबाउट कि यार रेस्टोरेंट में ऐसी कन्वर्जन होता है या ऐसी चीजें होती है या ऐसी प्रॉब्लम होती है, ये किसी को पता चले कि अच्छा यू कैन इम्पार्ट दैट नॉलेज, एंड देन उसके बेसिस पे वो आपको अप्रोच करके बोले कि हे यू नो व्हाट, कि यार आपको मैं आई एम हैप्पी टू गिव यू से एक्स अमाउंट, वी कैन डू दैट. The best of the people who have great networks or even do something great in life, and I think I'll tell you from my experience of meeting a bunch of people who have built unicorn companies also, I think they're very humble, right? So the first inert quality is that you leave your arrogance behind and you're open to talk to everyone, right? Because they know that because they've been built ground up, they know that they've been through the similar journey. I've been through a similar journey. They've been through the same journey of just starting nowhere and then sort of building up their network, right? So they're very, very humble. I think that's one thing which I've seen. Where do I meet them? This is a classic thing which I tell a lot of people, right? Everyone fights for a seat on the table, right? Like if you've heard of this thing called as find a seat on the table. कि यार यहाँ पे there are a lot of good people. I want to find a seat to their table. I told them that yaar, I don't want to go ahead and fight for the seat in the table because everyone else is fighting for that, and that's why I created a table of my own, right? And then I called people over, right? So for me, I meet most of these people on my events, which I do. So and then they somehow get to know someone and they sort of come by and then we meet them. So my way of doing this is different, but I think it's anyhow, right? I mean, you finding good network is like finding needle in a haystack. You have to like do more things, right? So even to be lucky, you have to be in a position to be lucky. So you have to go out there, you have to meet more people somehow, right? And somehow you'll find them, and the ones you identify to be good, then double down with your relationship with them. A lot of people would want to actually get these people in. The way you can do it is first by making it independent of your company, but just by like making a CXO community. Let's say maybe if there is a CMO who you'd want to like target, right? Maybe start attending more marketing events is start by creating a simple WhatsApp group of these people, right? It will take you some time, but just finding and identifying these people over the next 3, 6, 7 months. And again, I'll only speak in timelines which are large, right? So anything which you think of community is not going to come in with a small timeline. It'll come with a long timeline. So try to attend every other marketing conclave which you can get, right? And find this one type of CXO you want to go to, and you'll end up meeting a bunch of them. Say you find more CMOs you want to get them in, right? Reach out to them on LinkedIn, send them the link that, hey, you know what, we are doing this, right? Start building by that. Once enough of a WhatsApp group is created, then do an event and you can follow that track. But maybe initially the discovery of one type of CXO and then multiplying that will be of great value, I feel. That's of great value.